What's up, YouTube? Capital G here, looking at the new Kaiju cards from Breaker of Shadows, and we know that Kaijus were going to get 3 new cards. We know the ratio. Well, we knew that already from the Breaker of Shadows checklist. We knew it was going to be 2 monsters and 1 spell card, which is kind of weird. I'm trying to compare Kaijus to something similar, and it's like, well, Cosmos are TCG exclusive, and they came out in the same set, just like you guys, and they'll probably have the same run, maybe like 4 booster sets, and it's just, Cosmos hit the ground running. They were like tier 1, and, it seems like Kaiju are just kind of at a snail's pace with 3 cards per, booster sets. And honestly, I don't really think that the deck needs more monsters, because if you play Kaijus, well, not pure Kaijus, because I don't think that's very good, but if you play any of the variants, like, you usually only run 2 monsters or so, and of the 4 monsters they have, like, 3 of them are really good, so they don't need more big monsters when they've got 2 or 3 of them that are just really, really good already. Like, they need better supplementary pieces. Like, they need better just support, not more monsters though. Like, they don't, that's like Yosenju don't need more monsters unless they're going to be like extra deck monsters. Like, sometimes Konami gives they give these archetypes support, but they don't give it necessarily the proper support. So there are 3 cards to talk about. First is Gadarla, the Mysterious Dust Kaiju. I think that is this one right here, Mothra, basically. It's level 8 insect, effect when 2700 attack, 1600. I like the fact that stat line is always going to be good. All the Kaijus have pretty good stat lines. I like the fact that it's level 8. If you were ever going to build a pure Kaiju variant, I would highly suggest running Trade-In in the deck, because like, you're only going to have 2 Kaiju monsters on the field ever at the same time. So it's like, why have a handful of Kaijus when you could just trade them in and get like better stuff that you need at the time. The first effect, of course, is built in. Well, pretty much half of the card is built into all the other Kaijus. You guys know. Special summon it to your opponent's side of the field from your hand. Tribute 1 monster. You can only control 1 Kaiju. Has to be in attack position. If they control a Kaiju, you can summon it in attack position. Yada, yada, yada. The real effect is you can remove 3 Kaiju counters from anywhere on the field. Have the attack, or excuse me, that's during either player's turn. Quick effect, by the way. Have the attack and defense of all other monsters currently on the field. So this card, to me, I would probably think twice about giving this to your opponent, because this could really bone you over. The card is, it's okay. Like, to me, that's too many Kaiju counters to remove just to get a cut things in half effect. Like, Kaijus don't have problems running over other monsters in battle. That's like the name of the game for this deck. I mean, if you have this, yeah, it's kind of cool if you summon a Kaiju to your opponent's side of the field and then you run it over with this. But for me, 3 monsters, like, I'd rather just nuke their board with Godzilla than cut all the monsters in half. You know what I mean? Like, it just seems way more practical to just nuke their board completely than still have to attack through monsters. Because, like, even if you cut their monsters in half, you still have to attack through them. So unless like, you're in some odd situation where your opponent has like a plush fire and you need to like kill something without blowing up their board, then I guess this works. But generally, I would just stay away from this card. I just don't think it's very good. Next up is Jizakuru, the Star Destroyer Kaiju. That's this guy. I forget which one this is. I feel like Sea Turtle is Rodan, and this might be like MegaCapitalG or something like that. The first thing I looked at this card, I was like, yo, that stat line though, 3300 attack, like, good luck getting over that fucker. The real effect, again, we all know about the other, there can only be, 1 Kaiju on each player's side of the field, blah, 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 and all that good stuff. It says during either player's turn, when a card or an effect that targets exactly 1 card and no other cards is activated, you can remove 3 Kaiju counters from anywhere on the field, negate the effect, and if you do, destroy the card on the field. To me, I could be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure that's like the exact text of a Luminescent Knight. So the way that I look at this card is it's an Luminescent Knight. It would have been better, honestly, if it would have banished the card. But I mean, I'll take it. Like, to me, and the version of Kaijus that I run, which is like Grado Kaijus, like, that card seems like it could be really good, because there have been a couple of times where, I'll have anti-spell fragrance. It's like, oh man, my opponent like rips that MST or something like that. Or, they might try and like Castel, one of the cards that I have on the field. And it's like, it's really good to have an out to that. I will say this though. Kaiju kind of already have a card that does the same exact thing, but does it like cheaper. Like, Sea Turtle does literally the same thing. Like, I can't think of anything that this card could negate that Sea Turtle can't negate, but Sea Turtle like only banished. Sea Turtle only needs 2 counters to activate. Now this guy has way better stats than Sea Turtle, basically 1,000 more attack, so it's kind of, it's much better. But to me, it's like, I don't know. It seems like they're not going to top Sea Turtle. It's a fucking walking Solemn Judgment that banishes. So it seems like they're not going to top that card. Again, I see a reason to run this because of those ridiculously high stats. Like, I could even see you running this over Godzilla because 33 is, like, pretty damn impressive. Like, if you use, like, Great Old Gator and you use, like, Great Old Split, blow up something, end up taking this card, then that shit's going to be, like, hell in a handbasket for your opponent to get over. Even a deck like Cosmo, I mean, outside of having like Honest, they can't get over this card. Like Dart Destroyer, well, I guess Dart Destroyer is a fact, but nothing in battle anyways. All right, and then the final card is the TCG exclusive spell. This card is actually really good. And actually it's funny because it has like the two Kaijus that pretty much every version uses, like Godzilla and Rodan. This is called Interrupted Kaiju Dream. It's the unofficial name. Who knows what they're going to name it in the TCG. We'll find out in just a couple of days. It's a normal spell, and it says destroy as many monsters on the field as possible. Then special summon 2 Kaiju monsters with different names and attack position from your deck. One to each side of the field. But they cannot change their battle positions, and they must attack each other if able. Of course, if there's like Gravity Bind or something like that, then they can't attack. During the main phase, except the turn that this was sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card from your graveyard, add 1 Kaiju monster from your deck to your hand. You can only activate 1 Disrupted Kaiju Dream per turn. To me, this card is pretty good. Essentially this boils down to like, it's like a weird cross. I was talking about this in the stream last night. It's like a weird cross between Regeki and Last Turn, because it's essentially Regeki or Dark Hole because it basically nukes the board. Kaijus don't really summon, like you're not gonna have a lot of monsters on the board anyway, so I like to think of it as more of a Regeki than a Dark Hole. It's not like you play a deck that exceeds or synchros and you're gonna have multiple monsters on board. You nuke the board, and then you summon out 2 Kaijus. Obviously, you're going to take the bigger one so that you can survive the battle. And then they basically just fight each other to the death, and that's like Last Turn. Now, I like the fact that not only are you pretty much guaranteed to do battle damage and you get a field nuke, but then it's like, on your next turn or whenever, you just get to search a Kaiju monster. Like, they should have had something like this at the beginning rather than like the end. Like, this card is really, really good. Now, I will say this though. Konami still has not fixed the fundamental problem with Kaijus. And that is, it should be glaringly obvious, and that's the fact that they still don't have a reliable way to take control of like the Kaiju monsters. I mean, there's Capture Mission, but that card doesn't really give you the monsters. All it does is stop them from killing you. Like, they need, what Kaiju need is, if they're not going to give them a card that, like, well, honestly, no, that's just not out of that. Like, that's out of the question. They need like a monster, I don't know, level 4, like 1800. It needs to be a monster you can normal summon, like to your side of the field, that just lets you like remove 1 Kaiju counter to take control of a Kaiju monster until like the end of the turn or something like that. Like, that's what they need. Actually, if it was me, I'd make it permanent. But that's essentially what they need. They can't make it require, like, if it requires like two counters, then you need to keep the monster permanently, or it needs to be like 1 counter and you get to keep the monster until the end of the turn. Like, that would be pretty good. But having to run like remove brainwashing and owner seal, like, that just doesn't cut it, because those cards aren't searchable. So they need a Kaiju monster that like lets you take control of other Kaiju monsters. Well, and it can't be called a Kaiju monster, otherwise you wouldn't be able to resolve its effect, because you would only be able to control that card, unless it was like you summon it and you tribute it, and then you get to control like 1 Kaiju your opponent has. That would work too. And maybe instead of banishing or removing counters, which would be better, maybe you tribute the card, it's like a level 4, and then you take control of 1 Kaiju monster your opponent controls, and it permanently becomes yours. Like, that would be pretty decent. You know what I mean? And then maybe you can banish it from the graveyard to add like 3 Kaiju counters anywhere or something like that. Like, that would be kind of good. But Konami still needs to kind of fix that aspect of the archetype, because it seems like they're still trying to build this archetype as monsters, big beefy monsters clashing with each other. And that's cool for like lore and shit, but it doesn't work in competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, they're building this archetype like it's an original Yu-Gi-Oh series archetype when we're in the Zeal era. I mean, not the Zeal, when we're in the Arc V era, and it's like, yo, this is 2016. Big monsters clashing with each other as your soul win condition, like, just doesn't work anymore. You know what I mean? So let me know what you guys think. Thank you for watching as always.